has never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. Whether you're ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice, this podcast is for you. I'm Michelle Olander, life coach, vegan, ADHD matriarch, travel lover, and smoothie loather. And I know that it's the details that get in the way of your vegan journey. But I like to believe that the obstacle is always the way. So every week we meet here where I translate the tools of life coaching and Stoic philosophy. I bring you actionable tips, some laughs, interesting guests, and vegan ideas for everyone at any age. All to help you veg your best. Episode 238, Howling for Change. John Oberg using the algorithm for animal advocacy. Welcome back, my Veg Your Bestie. Welcome back to Veg Your Best. And if you're new here, you are so welcome. This is episode 238. Those numbers sound like there's a lot in the back catalog for you to listen to if you're new here, if you haven't been listening since day one. And how many of us can even say that? I don't even remember what the first couple hundred were about, I think, sometimes. But anyway, today I am chatting with another fantastic guest, the incredible John Oberg. I think you're going to love him. He's an animal advocate who has mastered the art of using the algorithm, using social media to make a real impact for animals. John's, I guess you can only call it a passion for advocacy, started very early, and thanks to his mom, who not only loved animals, but showed him the power of taking action. And you know, that's a theme we love around here. For people in their, maybe not in their first flush of youth, moms, grandmas, parents, aunts and uncles, everyday people stepping up in that second half of life to show leadership in important ways for our young people. And in this conversation, John shares how he got started, why social media is such a game changer for animal activism, all the other kinds of animal activism he's done that has led him here, and how you can start to use your voice a little bit more to make a difference. I'll see you on the other side. John Oberg, animal rights activist. Welcome to Veg Your Best.
Michelle, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's really a delight to have you here. You have built a very impressive social media following. I'm astonished by how many followers you have on Instagram. I don't even know. I don't follow all the other platforms particularly closely. So I imagine you have got similar numbers in all of these platforms. And I'm going to want to know everything about how you do this. But I want to know mostly, John, what brought you to animal activism?
Well, long before I focused my energy in the social media realm for animals, I got my start with a love for animals and a deep compassion for animals. And that was mainly from my mom. So I grew up in the Detroit area. I was born in 87, so grew up in I guess I would make it the 90s in the Detroit area. And my mom and I were very close. I was an only child and with a single mom. And she had a deep love for animals, which she certainly passed on to me. But I think it must have been genetics, because she used to tell me the story about how when I was just a baby, I loved our cats, and we had this cat named Muse, who was so sweet. She was a bit older, and she certainly had something off mentally, and she would stumble around from time to time. And one day she was rolling around on the couch, and she fell off onto the floor, and she was fine, but I was very concerned, and as a baby in diapers, I crawled over to her as quickly as possible to make sure she was okay. So I guess that caring for animals gene was successfully passed down to me, and I really, really loved animals, and my mom and I would do various things to take action for animals together. We would feed, the local strays, try and, do some TNR. So we would trap, neuter, and release them, and other various things. We always had companion animals growing up, cats, turtles. It was always a fun time in our household. And the first real foray into animal advocacy for myself was when my mom and I we would go to a local park before school every day. And in the state of Michigan, it's important to know that at the time it was the only state that would offer 10 cents for a if you return an aluminum can to the grocery store. And so, if you could, return 50 cans to the store, that's $5. And we were pretty poor. And so in the mornings before school, my mom would take me to the local park where we would go from trash can to trash can, pulling out any aluminum cans that we could find. And this was somewhat of a good bonding experience for us, but it wasn't the most fun or enjoyable of work. But something that did bring us joy was that in those early morning hours, the only beings who would be around at that time were these deer. And we would see these deer. We loved these deer. We gave them names. It's like we formed a camaraderie with these deer, who were protected living in this park. And one day we found out this horrifying news that these deer were going to be hunted after being protected for generations. And we were, so heartbroken over this because these deer were our friends. We cared about these deer. So as a, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 year old, certainly I was upset, but I didn't think there was any action that could be done. But my mom said, we are not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to take action. And so we would actually go to the entrances and exits of the park and stand there for hours holding these signs that said, being cruel isn't cool. Stop the hunt. Things like this. And my mom worked hard to get media attention. So she had local media, local news come out and interview us. And we fought hard for this. And unfortunately, our cries fell on deaf ears. And unfortunately, the hunts started and continued. And it was certainly a tough time, because we love these animals. And to know that they were being, ruthlessly killed was certainly heartbreaking. One day, however, my mom did say, Johnny, this is maybe uh, a questionable action legally, but I think we should try it. And so we stayed at the park after dark, after the park had closed. And my mom said, we need to warn the deer of danger coming. And so we howled. So we howled and we howled. And the next day, we found out that almost no deer were killed then. And and this was a really nice experience because it taught me a really really important lesson, and that lesson was when there's an injustice going on in the world, you do something, and you do whatever you can that is going to make a difference. And while many deer unfortunately were killed, it is nice to know that we did everything we could and hopefully saved a few deer with that one action. And so my mom really instilled this sense of taking action for animals in me, and that carries on to this day.
So, John, I mean, it sounds like your mom is a trip. She sounds fabulous. I hope is she still with us?
No, unfortunately, she passed away almost 10 years ago. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, you must have been very young.
Yeah, yeah. I was 28 at the time,
Hmm.
and I feel, while I feel a bit robbed in the sense that she was only 61 when she passed away. I also feel very grateful that we had a very incredible 28 years together.
Mm.
And for her last 2.5 years, she battled lung cancer, and I quit my job to take care of her full time. So I got to spend a lot of time with her, and I'm very grateful that I was able to live that life with her for from 2013 to 2015
Mm.
until she
Well,
passed.
I lost my mother much later in life to lung cancer as well, and we have that in common. It is a privilege to spend some time with your loved one when they're going through that. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So she sounds like she was a remarkable woman, a tremendous influence, and I'm wondering, in a way, she metaphorically taught you to howl in the wilderness. How do you help us be effective? Because it sounds like what you've devoted your adult life to doing is really how to be more effective when we're trying to draw attention to some of these things that strike us as tremendous injustices.
Yeah, well, the importance of howling cannot be understated. And us as animal advocates need to howl loudly to get the word out about the ways in which animals are being mistreated. So I got my start in animal advocacy. Yeah, you already know the kind of the backstory, but as far as career-wise, I started volunteering when I was in college. This is like 2009 to 2012. And I was volunteering a bunch. Then I graduated college, got a job working for an organization that paid me to travel around North America, handing out leaflets on college campuses. So I did this in the majority of US states and provinces, handed out almost 500,000 leaflets over the course of a few years. And I really loved that work. Most people hated leafletting. I actually found it to be enjoyable and quite effective for animals. It was certainly the best thing that I could be doing with my time. And so I really loved that. Unfortunately, my mom got sick, and so I took a hiatus from that job. But the organization I had been working for offered me the opportunity to take over the social media. And this was while I was taking care of my mom. And so certainly I couldn't travel, but I could do the social media from my computer next to her bedside. And so I decided to do it. I reluctantly accepted this offer to become director of communications for a group called Vegan Outreach. And I ran their social media, and I quickly realized that I could make more impact in one day on social media than I could in a lifetime of handing out leaflets on college campuses. And so that is where my focus shifted. And I am so happy that I made that shift because over the last 10 years, posts I've made through those channels that I ran, and then my own channels have been seen over 1 billion times. At no cost to me. This is just me using my time and energy to try and get the animal's message out there. And in the last 6 years, I've been doing this work independently. So I first did it for 2 years for the organization I've been working for, left, joined another organization, did that for 3 years. Last 6 years, I've been doing this independently, and it is the by far the most effective area that I can focus on, and that is using social media. So platforms like Facebook, Twitter slash X, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, TikTok, and so on to try and get the message out there about the ways in which animals are being mistreated. And it is so important for us as animal advocates to use these platforms to amplify these animals' messages because while social media certainly has a tremendous amount of downsides and problems, it also has an incredible opportunity for us as animal advocates to reach anybody around the globe in an instant with a message that they otherwise wouldn't be thinking about that day.
John, this is fascinating because I understand how amplified your message gets to be with social media, but I'm really curious in all that leafleting you did. I'm guessing what's made you very effective is one-on-one conversations with people while you were leafletting really helped you understand what people's resistance was, what worked with people, what helped you get some connection with people. What did when you were talking one on one with people and handing out leaflets?
You're absolutely correct, Michelle. Getting my start in animal advocacy with a lot of one-on-one conversations was actually a really good way to be my entry point into animal advocacy as a career, which is what I've been doing now for 15 years, last 12 years, full-time professionally. And well, I actually, when I would leaflet, the goal really wasn't to have one-on-one conversations. The goal was to get as many leaflets out as possible. Because while you may make an impact in a 10-minute conversation with someone, you could make arguably significantly larger impact by getting out, 100 leaflets in that time period. But there were many, many conversations that I had on college campuses and other places as well, all around North America. And it was, I did this everywhere. It wasn't just sticking to, the liberal cities on the coasts or conservative places. It was an incredible mix of places that I went to. And that led to so many great, stellar conversations that really taught me the importance of finding common ground with meat eaters and helped me realize that, you know, meat eaters aren't evil people. They are doing something that uh, is causing harm and suffering, sure, but they don't intend to do that. It's just the way that they've been born and raised, and they eat in a way that is normal to them. And most people just don't know about the alternative options. And it made me realize how important advocacy really is. It's very, very important to teach people the ways in which animals are being abused, but then also to inspire them to eat and live in a different way. And most people, even in today's world, just think that farm animals live decent lives behind the closed doors of factory farms and slaughterhouses with one bad day when they're sent to slaughter. Well, you and I and many of your listeners know that that is not the case. These animals are living wretched lives full of suffering and misery from basically the moment they're born until the moment they're slaughtered. And so it's very, very important to get this message out there for people to understand this, but then also for people to not just feel a sense of hopelessness, but to also understand that they can make a really big difference by encouraging people to actually eat more vegan food and to understand that vegan food is not some big, scary, foreign thing. It is simply choosing one thing off a menu instead of another, one thing off a grocery store shelf instead of another. And so social media, again, provides this really great opportunity for us to both inspire people and educate people in terms of what they can actually eat to make a difference.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know I know many people who probably in many ways love animals more than I do, who really metaphorically go like this whenever whenever I'm around because and they because they it I think they would actually be physically more upset by what happens to domesticated animals, farm quote farm animals, than even I would. I have watched a lot of the footage, and I occasionally rewatch it to remind myself a little bit what's going on. Um, and I know that a lot of people are terrified if they move in a vegan direction that someone's going to force them to watch these things. Um, and it's a paradox, isn't it? Just a very human paradox that we know and we don't know. We want to know, but we don't want to know. How do we help people feel safe with this information emotionally?
So it is a true fact that what's happening to farm animals behind the closed doors of factory farms and slaughterhouses is absolutely brutal. I'm not going to get into the details here, but it is just a life of misery and suffering, both on an emotional level, also on a physical level, on essentially every level that one can imagine. And it's happening. It's totally legal. And the vast majority of people don't know it's happening. So the scale of the problem is just so massively awful. At the same time, however, we have to understand that the people who we need to influence are non-vegans. And most non-vegans um, have this idea that farm animals live decent lives. And it's important for us to try and shake that truth or shake that myth and to inspire people to make these changes, as I just mentioned. And so it's really, really important for us um, to inspire and educate people in a way that they are receptive to. And so, we are not our audience. Our audience is our audience. And for that reason, that's really important for us to um, come at people in a way that they are going to welcome. And so, yes, while the truth is brutal, my goal is not to take a sledgehammer to the heads of my audience. The idea is to inspire them to actually make change, and for that reason, I find it to be more impactful to not focus on posting the worst of the worst violence towards animals, although that's happening. And it is important in some ways to understand. I think if you just post the worst of the worst and talk about the worst of the worst and have this absolutely doom and gloom sense about you, I think you are really leaving a lot on the table in terms of your impact. I think you can actually make a much bigger impact by talking about your own story, talking about how you became vegan, talking about the animal or animals who really made an influence on you, that led to you making changes. To talk about the great vegan food that you know and love. And when you are posting, footage of animal suffering, make it maybe more emotional rather than focusing on the worst violence that you can find, the worst blood and gore. While there's plenty of that content that exists, and again, in some capacities, it is important to share that content. I think the vast majority of the time, you want to take a slightly simpler, more subtle approach. And this more subtle approach will actually pay bigger dividends for animals.
Yeah. It's I don't talk a lot about animal advocacy. I like to have a lot of people on because I always feel that the way I make, especially midlife and older people, feel safe to move in this direction is to focus on what they know they can accomplish right now. We can't close down slaughterhouses. We can't completely change the industrial agricultural system yet. And we can send messages all the time by small things that we're doing. And if just walking down the dairy aisle of a supermarket, you see what we've accomplished just as consumers in the last 20 years. There's so many alternative plant milks that, I mean, it's to me, even to me, it's amazing how many options there are now. And that is just because people kept choosing one thing at a time. Most of us who are listening to this podcast today have some presence on social media. How do you suggest, even if we don't consider ourselves full-time animal advocates, how do you suggest we keep that in mind when we're posting and when we're using social media? What's a way that we can be positive and use social media for a positive purpose in terms of veganism or in terms of animal advocacy, in terms of what's going on, how we can support people doing great work in this area?
Well, something you just said is that it's important to understand that you know again, we aren't going to shut down industrial animal agriculture overnight. This is going to the death of animal agriculture is going to be essentially uh, death by 1,000 cuts, and it is going to be a very, very long, slow process. And we have to understand that, and have realistic expectations instead of just expecting that we are going to change the world overnight and expecting that everybody who we share this information with is going to change immediately. We have to be more realistic and understanding of the journey that other people are on. While I am a professional animal advocate and have been for 12 years, and I've been vegan for 15 years, you know, just about 16 years ago, I remember eating 39 chicken wings in one meal. When I would go to a restaurant, I might order a slab of ribs, and because I was like 18 or 19 years old, I would eat that whole thing, and then I'd order a second slab of ribs. And it's really wild to think about the amount of animals that I consumed and how I just did this mindlessly, despite the fact that I loved animals and I thought I was a great animal advocate. And so we have to really be as positive as we can and understand that those who we want to influence are certainly not where we are on the journey, and that's okay. We need to come at them in a way that works. And a great way to do this is to encourage small steps. So while I do occasionally just advocate for people to go vegan, fully vegan, there is also a time and a place to recommend, hey, try meatless Mondays. Try vegan weekends. Try to do baby steps, and baby steps are a really great way. And this helps crowd out meat and animal products and allows you to have better understanding of the options that are out there. And it can be quite a beautiful, fun world. My one of my favorite ways of framing veganism is that it's not closing doors. You aren't suddenly unable to eat a bunch of foods that you've been eating. And while that is true, that's not how you feel. You actually find that there are so many great new foods that you can try as a result. I certainly wouldn't have become such a big fan of tofu and tempeh and seitan and Indian and Mexican and Mediterranean and Japanese. And if I hadn't chose to become vegan 15 years ago, I would still probably be eating uh, hamburgers and hot dogs and pizza almost every day. And so it's really, veganism and eating vegan is actually quite beautiful and fun and interesting. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm traveling, and I travel a lot, is to when I land in a certain city, I open up the Happy Cow app and I look at the most popular vegan restaurants or restaurants with great vegan options. And I go to some of them and I love that experience. And that's so fun. And that's not something I think I would totally crave as much if I wasn't vegan. And so, you know, veganism and moving in the direction of veganism is a beautiful thing. And that is something that we need to remember, that it isn't a sacrifice. It is a way of living that is simply just eating and living in a way that is matching and reflecting the values that we already have. And and I love it.
I agree with you. I know that there are some people who find it restrictive, the concept restrictive, and I think there are some people who've had some issues with the way they have disordered eating patterns where it can feel very restrictive to them, any kind of reduction in choices. And so I think it's important to be compassionate that some people do not look at it that way. But at the same time, in my opinion, it has never been restrictive for me. It has sometimes been awkward. That I will say. It has occasionally been awkward. But in the long run, I've learned that even when it's awkward, it's such a valuable moment when people misunderstand what you're asking for. When I find that I am not explaining myself carefully or well enough, I learned so much. So just the communication that goes on between me and the world when I'm trying to ask for something that doesn't contain an animal has been actually a joy. Even in the long run, it's actually been a joy because it's made me so much more aware of what's that tacit, that unspoken expectation that animals are normal, necessary, and natural to eat. And even when we move away from it, it's still there and surrounded around us. And so, and I love that you are compassionate for people who are not there yet, who haven't, the penny hasn't dropped. They haven't connected those two ideas, or they have, and it just seems impossible at the moment for them.
Yeah, and it's very important for us to put ourselves in their shoes, and to really try and withhold our frustration. Us being frustrated is totally natural. Every day I'm frustrated. I look around me and I see lots and lots of people eating animals while also claiming that they love animals and feeling like they love animals. And while the world can be certainly frustrating and hypocritical place, at the same time, we have to really understand that change is going to come very slowly and painfully, far more so than we want it to be. But if we keep grinding away year after year, month after month, day after day, we will make progress for animals.
And it also reminds me that there are other areas that I'm blind to. It's what else don't I see that I could be making a better choice about. So it's given me a lot more humility and compassion, instead of judgment and complaint about other people. So so tell me, so what are some successes that you've had as a social media expert over these years? What are some things that you could point to that have made a big difference that you've been part of?
Sure. So my main goal on social media is to reach as many people as possible. And why do I want to do that? Well, the same reason I leaflet and I try to hand out as many leaflets as possible. The more people who know about the reality that these animals are experiencing, the more people who will change for the better. And change is so crucial. And just like when I went vegan 15 years ago, it was, I was happy to go vegan and I was happy to stop, contributing to the cruelty of animals. But when I thought about it, I went from a net negative to essentially a net neutral. And I realized that what's really important is to be a net positive for animals.
Explain that to me.
Sure. So a net negative, in essence, a meat eater is consuming dozens of animals every single year. So over the course of their lives, they'll eat hundreds or likely thousands of animals and cause a lot of suffering. A vegan doesn't eat animals, right? So they are no longer contributing to animal suffering. But which is, you're essentially neutral. So you're not contributing to animals suffering, but you're also not necessarily saving animals, preventing a ton of animals from coming into existence. And that is the importance of advocacy because we need to become net positives. And I realized that it was really important for me to get involved with advocacy because I didn't want to just look back on my deathbed and be like, yeah, I stopped eating animals at, 21 years old. And so over the last 50, 60 years, I haven't contributed. That's cool. But like, I want to look back and be like, I prevented thousands or tens of thousands or millions of animals from coming into existence to live a life of absolute misery and suffering. And that is when I realized the importance of advocacy and the importance of, and within advocacy, it's important to reach as many people as possible. And uh, and why is this important? I mean, the vast majority of vegans who I've met, and I've met thousands of them, went vegan because they saw something or read something about animal agriculture or veganism, factory farming, and so on. And this often happens on social media. And so it made me realize, wow, I need to reach as many people as possible. And so I've had this mindset, whether it was leafletting back in 2009, where I wanted to reach as many people as possible, or taking on social media full time in 2013 and onward to reach as many people as possible. And so every year I try to do this. And luckily, with my strategy, I've been able to reach millions and millions of people every single year with this important message of compassion for animals. And I fortunately hear from people all the time. Because I have such a large reach, I'm able to hear from a lot of people who will send me messages like, I saw your video 6 months ago and I haven't eaten an animal since. I got this one message from, I believe his name is Luke, where he just told me that um, he, his brother's wife, and their parents are now vegan because of a video that I had posted on Instagram like a year earlier. And so it's really nice to see this work firsthand and to hear this message from people. But I also want to mention that, fortunately, I have accumulated a large following and have a large number of views on my posts because I've been doing this full time for a really, really long time. And therefore, just by statistically, I'm able to hear from a lot of people. At the same time, the vast majority of people who we impact we'll never hear from. And so, if your listeners think about, who inspired them to go vegan, have those listeners reach out to that person or that group or whatever, odds are the answer is no. And I'm mentioning this because I want your listeners to know that there is a very, very good chance that they have made a very large impact on a large number of people who they will never hear from, but they are absolutely impacting them. And so, take solace in knowing that you are making a really big impact on people and therefore on animals. And you got to keep going. The animals need us doing this work for the long haul. And for that reason, it's really important that we do everything that we can to try and make as much impact as possible for the animals.
I love that. And I think that's so true. Even if somebody, all they do is make choices publicly, ask for the option. Even something, I always say, even if you just ask for what the options are at a restaurant, what are the vegan options? That's creating a space in the people that hear that, a space that such a thing even exists, that there's a market for it, that people want it, that it's working on many, many different levels. Even when you just ask, I'm vegan, what are the options? What could you help me find on the menu here? Just saying that. Because most of us did not grow up hearing those questions. It didn't even occur to most of us for decades. You're telling me some of the very wonderful, positive messages you've gotten. I'm guessing, if you're anything like me, you've gotten some less positive messages on social media. How do you keep yourself safe and happy and, deal with the day when you get less pleasant comments?
Sure. So it's important for your listeners to understand that we are facing a world full of people who love animals. Most people love animals and don't want them to suffer, but most people are also eating animals, which is in direct contradiction to this. And we, as vegan advocates, we want uh, these people to stop eating animals. And the problem with that is that the vast majority of people grow up and spend their entire lives eating animals. And suddenly you want them to change their ways. And it is a really big, tall order for people. And so some people will, on occasion, uh, go out of their way to fight back, and they will become maybe a little bit aggressive, and they will essentially try and combat your compassion for animals in some negative ways, and that can often lead to negative comments. But I actually think that when people respond like this, it's a sign that what we're doing is working. We are getting a response out of people, and we are actually making an impact. When I first went vegan in 2009, I was very, very loud and aggressive. It took me maybe 6 months to a year to calm down a bit and refocus my message into something more productive. But I am grateful for that time because it allowed me to learn some things and to learn that people don't really like being yelled at. People don't really like being shamed. And therefore I frame my messaging in a way that people are more receptive to, which I think is really, really important. But even the most kindly worded message can still be attacked by someone who disagrees with you, and that's okay. We can still make a really big impact on those people. And so one of the reasons I mentioned my time as an aggressive vegan early on was when I was quite aggressive. People were quite aggressive back, and these were because I wasn't like thinking about social media strategy or leafletting largely, in a massive way. At the time, a lot of people I was trying to influence were my friends and my family. And, a lot of my friends and family kind of pushed back on my messaging in sort of an aggressive way of their own, which, in a way is understandable because I was kind of aggressive first. And what's wild is that years later, many of those people who were the most aggressive towards me actually are asking me for vegan recipes. And so I think it's really important for us to remember that if you come across people who are being uh, uh, maybe rude to you or trolling you, whether they are friends, family, or strangers, I think it's important to remember that they actually um, might have more of an open mind than you might think. And they are sometimes the most likely to actually change over time. And so, this is a very long-winded way of saying that don't let the trolls get you down because people can certainly change no matter what. Uh, and there's one last funny part about this is that on social media, the more engagement your posts get, the more people see those posts. And so if you have people commenting like troll-esque comments on your posts, that actually says, that tells Facebook or Instagram or whatever, hey, people are engaging with this post. Let's show it to more people. And that is actually a really good thing and makes much more of an impact for animals. And so trolls can be actually quite beneficial in a lot of ways.
Trolls are your best friend.
Yeah, yeah.
The animal's best friend. That's very interesting. I had not ever thought about. I have looked at it as like, well, I'm making an impact. I'm getting out there, but I hadn't actually thought about how it's actually a much more effective social media strategy to be trolled. Maybe I won't block them quite so fast anymore.
Yeah, that's actually true. I'll occasionally block a troll who is just going really above and beyond. But the vast majority of the time, I just let them say their piece. And sometimes that'll create conversations within the comments section, and that can be good for the post. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I never mind somebody telling me they don't like it, or when it gets just kind of aggressively like what they want to do to to people like me. That's when I start to like block. But yes, because there's an argument to be made about our effectiveness, and there's an argument to be made about whether anything's actually going to change. Maybe, but the idea that people who are trying not to cause extra harm and trying not to have a snack that means the light goes out of an animal's eyes just to have an unconscious snack. It's hard. That's hard to really be mad at somebody else for. So far, I'm not powerful enough to keep you from doing whatever it is you want to do out there. So I feel like I feel like nobody needs to be too mad at me. So now, as a gentleman, as a man, as a member of that polarity of gender, what a lot of women that I talk to say, yeah, but my husband slash son is never going to be on board with this way of eating. There seems to be a gendered, socially, not individually, but socially, a gendered approach to meat products and to animals in this culture. Is there anything you would say about that in terms of communicating with men?
Certainly. Well, the idea of masculinity being tied to, consuming animal products, it goes back a long ways. And, we have the meat industry to thank for that. I say that sarcastically, of course. I think it is absolutely silly to try and tie masculinity to eating animals. I think that for anybody who's trying to look strong or courageous, if they want to think about what is actually strong and courageous, it's taking steps against the status quo to stand up for what you believe in, and it is going against the grain to choose the vegan option and to ask about the vegan options at a restaurant rather than just mindlessly choosing steak. There is nothing courageous or strong about that, or inherently masculine about that, and I find that the concept to be so silly. But the fact is, many men out there feel this need, and for that reason, I would really recommend those who want to try and encourage them to eat more vegan food to eat the foods that are as similar as possible to the foods that they are used to eating. And so if, someone's uh, son loves hamburgers and burgers, perhaps you don't want to try and take them to, an Indian restaurant, or perhaps you don't want to try and, feed them a tofu soup that you made. Maybe you can give them some great Beyond Meat sausages or an Impossible Burger. And these are things that are available at just about every grocery store in the United States, and at grocery stores around the world. You can find all kinds of plant-based meats out there. And that is something that I would seriously recommend. Also, if you want to take one of these people, one of these men in your life out to a restaurant, go to Happy Cow, look at the restaurants in your particular area, and see which ones seem like they would appeal most to that particular man. Maybe he does love, South Asian cuisine, and you want to take him to an Indian place or a Pakistani place or something else. And but definitely think about the options that are out there, and really. Um, one mistake that I do see a lot of vegans and vegan advocates make is that uh, they think that vegan food has to be healthy, vegan food has to be this brand new way of eating and living. And I really believe that in order to create a vegan world, we need to give people the foods that they're most used to already eating. And many men eat a lot of, burgers, hamburgers, hot dogs, sausages, meat and potatoes, uh, and we should try and give people what they're already used to, rather than saying, "Hey, I now want you to eat a salad every night," or "Hey, instead of going to get burgers, let's go get some other." Brand new kind of food. I think it's really important for us to meet people where they are rather than where we want them to be. And hey, you know what? If you want to try and get your husband to be the picture of health, and you want to slowly get him eating to eventually eat a large salad every night instead of maybe the hamburgers and hot dogs he's been eating every night, then maybe do so slowly and more subtly. And I think that slow and subtle approach could actually pay some big dividends for animals.
Well, I love that the whole concept of meeting people where they are. And to me, I'd like to meet you where you are. You're in Mexico City, you said, John.
Yeah, I'm spending a few months here.
Tell us all about, and you said it's one of the most vegan friendly cities maybe in the world. Tell us a little bit about that. Can you give us a quick précis about Mexico City for vegans?
Sure. So, a lot of people are totally surprised by this fact, and Mexico City is probably one of the top five vegan cities in the world. The other ones probably being maybe Los Angeles, New York, Berlin, Warsaw, Bangkok. Mexico City is right up there in that mix in terms of being the most vegan friendly city. And it is quite amazing. And it is kind of funny because I eat pretty strictly. And so I am constantly sort of frustrated because I want to eat all of the food. Every day I walk to the gym and I walk by this incredible vegan restaurant every day. And I'm like, oh my God, is today the day? Do I want to go there? And I have to hold myself back. But yeah, it is quite amazing. And that's something for any of your listeners who aren't vegan to understand that like vegan food makes like eating more exciting because, like I was saying earlier, it opens more doors and closes. And it's actually quite a fun experience to try and find the veg places in a new place, and can even lead you to travel in certain places. Like I'm planning on going to London later this year, and I'm really excited about that because London has incredible vegan options. Um, and so it's really important to think about all the great vegan food everywhere. And you know what? Even if you're in some place that is significantly less vegan friendly, like let's say, I don't know, Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, there's still going to be more options than you think there would be. And why is that? Because, you know, restaurants understand that a certain percentage of their audience certain percentage of customers are vegan or vegetarian or veg friendly or flexitarian and want options that cater to them. And so most restaurants have options on the menu that suits them. And again, Happy Cow is a great resource. But also, yeah, asking people what the vegan options are. And if your particular server doesn't know the answer to that question, then maybe ask to speak to the manager. And at the very least, this is good advocacy for animals because it's getting people to think about the demand side of things.
I totally agree. And social media is a godsend for those of us traveling somewhere new where we don't really know how to begin or how to communicate effectively with a server in another language or in another culture. So social media to me is like, I just say, give me all your recommendations and what should I make? How should I ask? And who should I ask for? It's such a great technology that we have. I hear so many people complaining about social media and they're not wrong. They're not wrong, but it's like any other tool. How can we use it for something that really enhances our lives, enhances our opportunity to be on this planet and interact with everybody? John, how can people follow what you're doing? We shared that we were both going to be in Warsaw later on in the year, not at the same time. You're going to be at a conference. You said it's called CARE.
Yes, I will be at CARE, which is the Conference for Animal Rights in Europe in Warsaw. I will also be at other conferences throughout the year, including the AVA Summit, which is Animal and Vegan Advocacy Summit in Los Angeles in May. And I'm very excited about that. That's, I would say, probably the best animal rights conference in the world. And I highly recommend people go to that. In terms of getting in contact with me and learning more about my work, I mean, my website is johnoberg.org. Should anybody want to donate to support my work is fueled exclusively by donations, and they could do so at johnoberg.org. It's plenty of links on the website to find it. And they can connect with me on social media at John Oberg on Instagram and on Twitter, on Facebook at John Oberg Official, and on any other social media platform. If you search John Oberg, just look for the picture of me wearing this shirt, which is a black t-shirt, and me with my arms folded. That is the picture I use everywhere. So you should be able to find me.
And Oberg is spelled Oberg. JohnOberg.org is your main website. And we'll have the links in the show notes. And we will be linking to it on Instagram. John, thank you so much for being with us on Veg Your Best. I think you've given a lot of people a lot of different ideas about how to approach their social media usage this week.
Well, thanks for having me on, Michelle. It was an honor to talk with you and your listeners. Cheers.
So what did you think of John Oberg? That's a wrap today on his story, but there's so much more you can find about him at his website. All the links will be in the show notes. His story to me is proof that one person really, really, really can make an impact. If you're feeling a little bit ground down by everything that's going on, please be inspired by people who nobody asked them to take on this leadership. Nobody asked them. They just stepped out and did a little something and then did a little something more. And I love the story of John's mom, her influence, and how that influence, Howling, continues to ripple through his work today. You know, John reminded us that social media also, it's not just for scrolling, it's not just for consuming. It is a powerful tool when used nicely, when used intentionally. And it's a powerful tool to educate, inspire, and create change. And you don't have to be an influencer, a TikTok skilled multimedia dancer and singer. And it's a powerful, powerful tool no matter how you use it. Whether it's sharing a post, starting a conversation, or just leading by example, every little bit adds up. So, what's your next step this week, my veggie bestie? Maybe it's sharing a meatless meal with someone who's skeptical, or maybe it's trying a meatless meal. Maybe you're the one who's a little skeptical. Maybe it's borrowing a vegan cookbook from a friend. Ask me if I have any preferences. My preferences, I have a lot of cookbook preferences, but they kind of depend on the individual person, what they're looking for. But you can always drop me a line or at my email, or you can DM me. I'm happy to share with you any ideas I have. So whatever it is, however small, I'm cheering you on as you howl for all the great things that are possible in this world when we just show our own leadership, when we just start. So thanks for hanging out with me today. This has been really the honor of a lifetime to get to share Veg Your Best with so many people and so many great guests. And if I could do it, I guarantee you that you can get out there and veg your best. Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.